Hello, we are Geeks Assembled, and today we are discussing a movie from 1984, which was based on a book franchise by Frank Herbert. And I think people have guessed already. We are talking the David Lynch production of Dune. I mean, the books of there was about five sequels to the book. I think there was five, um, and this is sort of the first installment of the Dune saga, um, starring Cal MacLachlan. Again, another David Lynch friend in many of his movies, and many other actors in this movie are David David Lynch. Susan putting all these pictures there, but yeah, all these actors in this have appeared in many of Lynch's movies. He just trusts his friends and asks them to appear in his movies. So this one movie was fraught with troubles from above high, um, meaning that some of the edits and cuts and different versions of this have Lynch's name removed because he doesn't want to be involved with it, and so he's known as Alan Smithy, of course. Um, so we will go around this group here with opening thoughts on Dune. Um, let's go to Susan first because I know deep down, I think she's just got a tiny smidgen liking for this. Oh, Susan.
Uh, Always the understatement of the year there, Mr. Wilson. Yeah, I love Dune. I think it's a fantastic story set far, far, far in the future, and humanity has developed into some different forms and uh, travels through space using a thing called spice, the spice melange. And this is the story of the Atreides family taking over the planet of the spice melange, um, Arrakis. And I had a friend in Portland, Oregon, who I'm just going to shout out, whose name was Arcus. And his mother and father had named him after this book series. And because it was before the movie and before the audios of any kind, they called him Arcus. Anyway, he's a great guy. And I have loved this story since I first read it back in high school. And um, yeah, it's a phenomenal tale, and the the different kinds of noble houses and sort of taking from the peerage of the UK and just kind of dispersing it into the galaxy is fun. And the fact that there are two competing houses for the house of for the lifeblood of the spice melange, the House Harkonnen and the House Atreides. And the House Harkonnen is run by Baron Harkonnen, and the House Atreides is run by Duke Leto, and he's a great guy. And his son is Paul, and his son is amazing, superhero kind of amazing. Anyway, you get so much of a fun story with like Paul Muad'Dib and Chani, his Fremen wife, and their story of going into the desert and taming the desert and then taming Arrakis and changing the whole universe and really drawing all of the power in the universe to themselves, and yet being just about it. They called Duke Leto the just, but here is Paul, and he is a just man. And on the other side, the Harkonnens have the Baron, who is this blobular father figure who is crazy. And then there's Raban, who is just supposed to be the fist of the House Harkonnen, and then there's Feyd, played by Sting. Oh my gosh! And Feyd is supposed to be the Harkonnen families. Um, he's supposed to be their savior. They're gonna release him after Raban squeezes. Feyd is merciful, so and Feyd is going to be super attractive and super cute, and he's going to rule the universe with Aurelian, who is the emperor's daughter, and that was like the whole plan. And but Paul had other plans, and Paul was actually the Kwisatz Haderach, which is the supreme being. Basically, a line of witches had created this being, and Paul's mother being having sort of a more central role in the whole process than they had thought, actually brought him forth. So wow, what a great story. Anyway, it's beautiful. David Lynch makes it eerie and fun, and it's really one of the only stories that you ever get from the omniscient point of view. You are actually omniscient in the book, and in the movie you are, you know what God knows. You know everything. Every thought, every feeling, everything is revealed. And that's really awkward for some people. But David Lynch knows awkward. He does awkward really well. Anyway, there you go. That's my opening thoughts. Oh, back over to you.
Well, thank you, Susan. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it, and it's the first time you've ever heard of Dune. Let's go to Tim. His opening thoughts on this movie.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the trouble they had making it, because Lynch has pretty much washed his hands of it. This was his third film, and it's funny, he'd been asked by George Lucas to direct The Return of the Jedi the year before, and he turned it down, saying, "I don't really do science fiction." And then he did this movie instead the next year. But the problem is they took it away. They took the cut away from him because he insisted it had to be 3 hours for him to get his whole story across. He'd written a screenplay, and he'd determined it, and they got pressure from the studio. No, you got to have a 2 hour running time. They can show it more times and all that stuff. And they were really expecting a sort of Star Wars blockbuster, and what they got was nothing like that at all. So it didn't do very well in the theater. It kind of bombed, and he's always seen it. Lynch himself has always seen it as a negative experience because he didn't have final cut. He didn't really get to present the vision he wanted. He learned his hard lesson there that he would never ever work on a film if he didn't have the final cut on it. And as we spoke about his next film last time, Blue Velvet, they told him, the same company, the De Laurentiis group, that you can go ahead and do the next. We'll produce your next film, but you have to bring it in under 2 hours. And he did. So he didn't burn any bridges there. But that's why there are so many cuts though of this film. There's a lot of stuff that was filmed that wasn't used in the final cut, and also the story is kind of messed up by the cut that they use. I mean, because it rains at the end. That wasn't the point. The rain coming along would actually kill the sandworms, which would destroy the spice, and then how is that the revolution they were trying to get? I mean, I don't know. It seems like that was an awkwardly dumb ending to tack on there, but it doesn't really work with the story. But as Susan said, it's a very beautiful movie. It's the sets are gorgeous. You can tell this is a film that as you watch it, you can tell the money run out at some point, because a lot of the effects are effective, but a lot of them are just really cardboard, and a lot of the matte work and stuff is very good for its time, and it holds up pretty well for being a 38-year-old film or 37-year-old movie. It doesn't look that bad. The acting's a bit wonky in some scenes, but that's okay. I mean, it's a sci-fi movie, and I'd say the acting's very good in some other scenes. I mean, it just depends on what scene you're. I mean, and you've got an astounding cast in this. A lot of them weren't famous yet, too. But as as you go through life, a lot of people you see in movies, they turn out to become more famous later. And like you said, Lee, many of these actors will be used again in other Lynch films. So yeah, it's but as an adaptation of the book, I think it does a valiant attempt. It doesn't quite pull it off. I mean, it is widely considered a bomb. Now you've got this other director doing a double movie of the same stuff this year or early next year, and I think they keep moving it. And it remains to be seen if you can actually have a good filmed version of Dune, because it seems to me it's one of those ones that they would call unfilmable. I've never read the books, but I understand they're very complex, very political. And if you don't pay attention in this movie, I mean, this is a movie you have to watch more than once, really, because the beautiful Virginia Madsen, she has an opening scene where she kind of narrates a little bit and says, this is this. And it, you'd have to take notes to actually keep up with all that she says. I mean, she explains the basic plot, the different houses and what spice is, but I don't know. You just don't, unless you're keeping notes, you probably can't keep up with the complex story. But Susan mentioned the inner dialogue, which I think it's very effective in this movie. A lot of people complain about it. They think it's it's too soapy, or it's like a cheap trick or something. But I think it's very effective in this film when you hear their voice inside their head. I thought that was very effective in this film. I might be in the minority there because a lot of people complain about that, but I think it's a good way of moving the story along. And if you understand what those characters are thinking and what they're doing, and it does kind of explain things. But yeah, I'd say overall it's a good movie. It's of its time, and I mean, it's interesting to me that over the years it's gotten a lot more acceptance as a cult classic rather than the bomb it was at the time. And that's my open. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Yeah, a lot of stuff I agree with you there. Right, here we go. Let's go over to Craig and David. Let's see what they have to say.
There you go. Sorry, I just had the mute on there. No, I agree with Tim, and I like the dialogue. I like the end. It's a bit like in Blade Runner, where there's one movie where you can hear he's like narrating the story as he's going along. I prefer that one, more than the one where they take the dialogue out. But like Sue said, it's an immense universe. How can you condense it down? Was it 2.5 hours or something? It's just impossible. There's so much going on. It's and Patrick Stewart's one of his probably first major roles, before he became the Starship Enterprise captain. But this thing, the sets are like really Art Nouveau. If you look at it, it's so beautiful,
Very bohemian.
Yeah, it's got that real sort of bohemian feel. It's interesting, like the spice is like reference to maybe LSD being like, the psychotic that, or the psycho, what's it called? Psychotropic that can actually change consciousness, and LSD can do this. Like, once you go through the door, you're not the same person who comes back through, as Huxley would say, And also, funny, it was every square inch of the desert scoured it for any living creature because it had to be totally lifeless, So it was like it took hours to sort of go across the sand to make sure everything was clear, no vegetation, no tiny little sort of microscopic beetles or anything, quite incredible, But I think all the characters are great. Sting's a bit wooden, but then again, he was pretty good in Brimstone and Treacle, but sort of like it. But Francesca Annis looks great, and I'm sorry, I forgot the Virginia. The lady at the beginning of the story, I've forgotten her name. Virginia. Yeah, she's beautiful, and she's had more of a role in the movie because I think she was quite, charismatic on screen, but it's just another one. It's just one of them worlds within worlds within worlds. It's the kind of thing, like Sue said. I've seen the movie a couple of times, and things you miss, and then you go back to it, and you think, wow, that was cool. I think. Yeah, it's definitely, and I didn't realize it bombed at the time, I mean, I saw it at Leicester Square, actually, we bought the seats and went down, and we just moved to London, it was great, I mean, for the time, the special effects are amazing, especially the force field effects, yeah, brilliant, really cool, It's funny they were using that in Money for Nothing, the Sting and Dire Straits song, they're using the similar effects that they had in Dune also, Also, is it June or Dune?
Ooh.
How
I don't know. I think it
Depends on
depends. It depends where you're from, I suppose.
Yeah, that's it. Like it's like Bath or Bath. What do you think, Pete?
I like it. I mean, it's
It's
a
got real-
beautiful little movie.
Yeah, it's really magical. You know?
I like the spaceships are great. The costumes. So I mean, some of the costumes look like some of the like Marvel Avenger suits now.
And that Doctor Who reference that you were talking about earlier, that you said had a similar.
Yeah, I keep thinking of that Zyton 7 episode, Vengeance on Varos. It reminds me of one of those episodes where they're just mining for different substances and minerals and stuff. But I was thinking about this movie. Normally I reference stuff to Tim Burton, but now I've actually got I know where Tim Burton gets his sandworms idea from. Blatantly from Dune. Even Tremors, I mean, that's about sandworms coming out of the ground and that. And I think, I'll talk about that a bit later anyway. But yeah, it's a great movie, and nothing really. I've been watching it, and nothing. There's a bit where the spaceship's going through like the planet, and then you can see it from like a third person perspective. That was a bit jumpy, but apart from that, the graphics are pretty good for the time. Even now, they stand up to the standard time. So yeah,
Golden space.
Yes, the famous flow. I agree with what Tim says about the inner dialogue. It does move the story along, but I'm not a fan of it. It's annoying for me. I don't know why. I'm picky like that. But I agree, it does move the film along, because the amount of material Lynch had to work with from the novel to get it into a movie. It's unbelievable what he did achieve with this movie. Yes, it bombed. As Tim says, I think the film company was expecting something different, and what Lynch, gave them was not what they wanted. But it's still a damn good movie. You have got an amazing ensemble cast. Some great names in small roles. Shan Phillips as one of the high priestess or witch, or what you want to call her. Brad Dourif is in this. Freddie Jones, which is actor, is in this. As you say, Patrick Stewart. The list is
Hunt.
endless. Pardon?
Linda Hunt.
Yeah. It's just an endless list of these names. Yeah. As the Emperor. Sting, yeah. Well, we'll get to Sting later. I mean, it's for me. It's a brilliant tale, as you said. When I was younger, I did try and read the novels, and as it's been mentioned here, it's really, really hard to get into these novels. There is a lot. Oh, Susan's shaking her head. Here we go. For me personally, I'll tell you something. The Frank Herbert Dune book series and the Tolkien Lord of the Rings series is so damn hard to sit and read through, because it is so many pages. Yeah, it's those,
like
those yeah, 3 times over.
Don't. If somebody said to me, "Have you read the Bible?" I says, "Don't tell me the ending and spoil it."
But yeah, I don't know. has it stood the test of time, this movie? I think it has.
Yeah.
So it has, because it's still an enjoyable movie. Yeah, some of the effects iffy, but most of them they're still up there. I can understand why Lynch got his fingers burnt with this one, and he sort of moved away from mainstream movie making, because I think this was his only, well, apart from The Elephant Man, shall we say.
Yeah, but Elephant Man, he had a much smaller budget to work with, so
yeah,
it was far easier.
Very successful movie, and so this is why they gave him Dune. And then he went back to what he likes to do, confuse people. But this one, because he was working from somebody else's material, I think, to be honest, he had to work with that material and give it some sort of justice. In my opinion, he did, but it's a lot of material to try and get onto the screen, as I say. But enjoyable movie. So let's go to favourite things, or things what you weren't so keen on. Over to you.
I think the score is very good. If you told me that Toto, of all groups, was going to score a film,
I totally forgot Toto had done that.
And Brian Eno.
Brian Eno. But it's a very effective score, and it works very well in the movie. And I've had the soundtrack for years. I used to listen to it. But also there's some very good scenes, like for example, the scene when he takes the blue water. That was a scene that Lynch wrote in to facilitate the removal of several other scenes that had already been filmed. I don't know if you saw that deleted scenes package that I shared it on Skype. It's on YouTube, where one of the producers, Rafaela De Laurentiis, she explains how by adding that scene they're able to cut 4 or 5 others, because at that point they're really trying to get the movie down to a reasonable length. And it's an effective scene because it's, he takes the blue water and he wakes up and and he shouts to his father, "I've woken," or whatever. It's like, and the worms are just sitting there like waiting, because he's like their messiah, and they're just like sitting there chilled out waiting for him to become what he becomes. And I think that's a great thing. It's not too heavy-handed either. I mean, this is actually a much better story than they have in Star Wars, which is like a simplified version of boy's journey or whatever. I think that this is a much better film. I mean, a much better story, maybe not so effective as film, but that's one of many scenes like that are really effective. I think there's some others that he goes for the gross out though, which I think is what turned a lot of people off to it, like the Harkonnen guy with his filthy pustules and the the homoerotic scene where he kills that little boy, or that just because he can. It's just, there's all kinds of stuff in there that's pretty bizarre. I think that turned a lot of people off. I remember Siskel and Ebert famously gave it 2 thumbs down. They never liked any Lynch movies, though. In fact, later on in his career, he said that he was promoting Lost Highway, and he said, 2 thumbs down from Siskel and Ebert, 2 more reasons to see Lost Highway. Pretty much saying they don't get it. But yeah, this is an excellent movie. I mean, it's they've asked Lynch a couple of times, would you like to go back and recut it now? And he says, no, of course not. That was 30 plus years ago. I'm not bothered with that. Which is fine. I mean, it'd be good to see his cut, but you're right. I mean, why go backward?
Thanks for that, Tim. Go on then, Susan. Let's hear what you've got to say.
All right. Well, the cut that I watched is the longer cut, but it's not missing too much out of the whole plot. I mean, there are lots of little pieces that are gone, but the story is there in completion, and the way that it ends is the way that the other version ends is sort of it sort of gives people, because people who have watched a desert movie want rain. That was wish fulfillment for the audience. It wasn't, completely part of the canon. I mean, it took years for that planet to be
No, it's a
formed.
botched ending. I mean, they actually ruined their own story because it would kill the sandworms, and the
Well,
sandworms are the spies.
it would immediately kill them if they were nearby, but the ones out in the desert, anyway, it was wish fulfillment for the audience, and the De Laurentises are good at that. I'll get into that in a little bit. One of my favorite moments is Paul Muad'Dib repeating repeating over and over and over again this bit of the story. I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me. And when it is gone, I will return the inner eye to see its path. Where the fear is gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain.
Wow.
That is like so beautiful. I mean, the story is lovely, and the journey that Paul goes on between being a royal son to being a glorious leader of humanity it's epic. I mean, the things that he faces down. It's man versus nature, man versus man versus society, man versus God. It has all of those things in it, and I think that he does. I think that Herbert does a great thing with capturing those conflicts that bring Paul higher and higher and stronger. And then the other thing that's really amazing is the way that Kyle MacLachlan, or Kyle, what's his last name again? Did I get that right?
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, Kyle MacLachlan, nails the performance. I mean, like he does in Twin Peaks, like he does in Blue Velvet. He has in him an innocence that is forced to be either brilliant or terrifying in various forms, and it's his innocence is it just helps you believe. Whenever Kyle's now in something, I believe it, and and this helped that. And then
We won't say anything about showgirls.
yeah, okay. And then the other thing was the Fremen. I mean, the stories in the desert are compressed a lot in this movie, and so the Fremen story is told from the perspective of that one siege and that one moment with Stilgar, and meeting Chani, and all the rest is sort of morphed into that one bit, and it is a bit of a squish, but I enjoy the movie so much because they tried to put things in, and Lynch is a great director that way, and so those are my favorite moments. The fear has moved through me, and only I remain. Please go on with this.
Thank you, Susan. Right, we'll go over to the two people on the sofa.
Yeah, it's water is life, and what are human beings doing to water? Poisoning it with the shit that they pour into it every day. And the thing is, like, water is the only real commodity, if you want to call it that we really do have, because everything else, monetary, will collapse. Possessions or just end up possessing you, but water is
Oh.
life.
My favourite bits where the ugly thing with the spots and
Bannon.
the crazy one, he
Mhm.
floats around all the time. He's just got eaten by a sandworm.
Yeah.
That's my favourite moment.
Sandworms are beautiful. You know? The thing is, I've got a question for Sue. What do the sandworms drink, Sue?
The sandworms drink water
Yeah.
from blood from the creatures that walk in the desert, and through that they process the the stuff of life and create both the water of life and
Right.
the spice melange. The worm is everything. The worm has all, the whole sway of light and travel and reality is purpose in these
incredible?
great worms that come out of the desert.
Yeah. It's like worlds within worlds. You know, this whole thing is like,
Yeah, one of them ate Boba Fett.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know, that great line. I could be bound in a nutshell and call myself the king of infinite space if it were not for bad dreams. It's from Hamlet. It's funny. It just rang in my head when I was watching it this afternoon with Craig. Like, and it's true. Like, he sort of like he goes to the point where the women witches can't go to, and drinks the water, And I think sometimes facing that fear, we're going through times now where fear seems to be the dominant factor. Fear will kill people, not the virus or whatever it may be. It's fear that kills people. But if fears are liars, then maybe so is hope. So maybe you've got to sort of look at the whole thing in a different spectrum, eh? Sorry, I went off on one.
I just love these philosophical casts we do.
David Lynch would be
It's
so
called
proud of
bipolarism.
David.
It's called creative bipolarism. Cheers for that.
Yeah, cheers.
I'm going to drink from the water of life now.
Anything else from you two before we move on?
I really like the worms. When the worm ate the mining machine, and you realise how big the worm actually is. I mean, I was like, oh, that's a pretty good worm. But you know what? If the worms if they were poorly made, then it would have really affected the whole of the movie. But even the close-ups of the worms, they're fucking awesome, man. And I think that's why it doesn't let the movie down at all, really.
Yeah.
Not at all, yeah. And even Sting sort of pulls it off. Like
And the blue eyes are pretty cool as well. When they have the glowing
yeah.
eyes, that's pretty cool. They don't look too. They didn't overuse it, but they look really effective.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful color. Blue, quite a sort of spiritual color. Anyway, it's quite a, the sky, the sea, infinity. Beautiful color.
I just wish it was Bowie and not Sting, but it's all right. It's okay.
Maybe they tried, like Craig was saying, it should have been Bowie. It would have been great.
Should have been
I will kill him. I will. Ziggy Stardust played guitar.
Well, I don't know. Thanks for that, you two. I mean, the book was originally written in the 1960s.
Wow.
I think it was the 60s. So they waited a good 20 years before this was made.
Taking a lot of spice in the 60s, I heard.
Well, there were previous attempts. I mean, there's the famous Feyd-Rautha version that never got made. There's a documentary about that.
What we're looking at.
Right.
But and I was going to call him James Herbert. Frank Herbert actually saw this made, and I don't know if he was disappointed with the production of this and the ending result, but he passed a couple of years after. In 1986, he passed away. Did Frank Herbert? So he's never seen any of the other versions. I mean, TV miniseries and stuff like that. What was made of this, and now we're getting a new version which has been put back to next year, of course. But so he wrote five novels on the Dune saga, and they've only really touched on, sort of the first novel. So if this new movie is a success, you could have movie after movie here, I would say, if it's a success, if people like what they do with it. But going back to this version, the sandworms are so awesome in this. The design, the effect of the sandworms, the effect of them climbing onto the sandworms, gripping onto them and getting up there and riding the sandworms. It's so well done.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
But for me, my favourite character is the Baron. I just love the Baron. I mean, what Tim said earlier about all his puss
He
filled.
reminds me of the guy in Hellraiser 2 who's in the
Ah,
hospital.
the
with
doctor.
those parts.
Yeah, the doctor.
Probably
Yeah,
'cause he floats around a lot.
yeah. The way, the bloated fruit and he's just flying around and all of that. But it's a bit disturbing that
Oh, it's raining now.
the bit disturbing that his two henchmen, the two, Sting and Paul L. Smith, who plays his nephews.
Johnny Rotten would have been better.
They are his nephews, and when Sting comes out of that steam shower, just a little tiny little pants, he is salivating over him, and I'm thinking, oh well, he's your nephew.
Lee, do you
He's the
remember
dodgy uncle?
Yeah, like Keith Moon and Tommy, fiddling it about, fiddling it about, fiddling it about.
For me, the characterization of the Baron is so well done. He's evil. He's the way he sort of pounced on that young guy earlier in the movie. And
He's repulsive.
Yeah, that's it. He rips out his heart valve.
Yeah, the blood went everywhere. Kenneth
Macmillan.
But
Don't you think Jack Nance looks like
the best parts in movies are the bad guys. To play the bad guy is the best part you could get. That's why bad guys always stand out for me in movies, and he really did stand out. Was it a good ending for the Baron? I don't know. I didn't get it with the little girl. I didn't know. It was a bit too quick.
Yeah.
But
well, she cut him and sent him on his way, basically, and he got ate by the worm. So.
It's because she was inside of his mind. It was more of that inner monologue stuff that you really didn't enjoy.
Yeah, I know. The inner monologue. But that was just a few of my favourite moments. But I did like the performances from Sting and Paul L. Smith, his name is, as the two nephews. What the big he was called, I can't remember his name, something the Beast, wasn't he?
Yeah, the Beast Raban.
Yeah, the Raban,
that's it.
Great characters to see on screen. As David said, though, would Bowie have been any better than Sting?
I think you're right.
Who knows?
Well, there's not a whole lot of dialogue he has. Basically, he's just there to
dance about with a knife in your hand.
Like I mentioned,
The serious mood lights.
So, anything else we'd like to say about the movie before we go to final say and score?
I'll just please see it again.
Did you notice Jack Nance was also, sorry, Jack Nance was in it. He was one of those guys as well, one of the Harkonnens.
Yeah, he was like he was with Brad Dourif at the beginning of it, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Until Brad Dourif got a face full of poison tooth.
He was another part that nobody's mentioned was the fantastic fight scene between Feyd-Rautha and Paul Muad'Dib. Kyle MacLachlan and Sting
Sting.
sort of wrestling and stabby knives, and it was no protection. It was like an honor duel, and I mean, I just love that scene a lot.
Yeah, I mean, also as well, I could see where the inspiration for the face of Bo came from in Doctor Who with the tank.
Yes,
Yeah, at the beginning of the movie.
Oh, no, I forgot about that. That
the
was-
Guild Navigator. Yes,
The little alien.
Yeah.
Who
What's
was
it?
that? Planets.
Linda Hunt.
That was cool.
But yeah, it's. I was watching it and I thought, yeah, I can see where some inspiration came for that.
and it was so steampunk. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I love a bit of steampunk in the movie.
I think it won an Academy Award for its design or something like that.
Yeah, it might have
I
done.
think it was nominated.
Yeah, I don't think Lynch was nominated at all, though.
He was actually he did a lot of the set design himself.
Yeah.
Those are his designs. So,
and the costumes in this are just amazing. You know, just
Yeah.
the women's
music.
gowns and the armory, and it's just amazing. So, shall we go on to final saying score? Let's do it then. Craig, David, over to you. Final saying score.
Right. Well, 9.
Mm. Okay.
I think 9.5. Honestly.
Sandworms out of 10.
Yes. Sandworms out of 10 is 9.5.
There you go.
I'm looking forward to the music in the new one gives me chills, but the music in this one was pretty good as well. By the Vienna Symphony.
Yeah,
Orchestra,
and also
whatever they were.
Brian Eno's great. You know, I mean, he's not a musician really. Brian Eno is more like a sort of I don't know, like a scientist of sound. You know, he doesn't really play an instrument.
he's a bloke with a keyboard.
He's a bloke with a keyboard. Yeah, that's right. He was in Moxie music.
Kev McCulloch.
That's the technical term.
Going back a bit now, like yeah, but yeah, great stuff. Like, Tim, what we said, was it Toto?
Yeah.
Did you say it was?
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't realize it. That was pretty cool, actually. I didn't realize that it.
And maybe they got their inspiration, you know. Well, no, Africa was before this one, so Rain in Africa was nothing to do with Dune.
It's funny. There's a reference to Africa, no rain, and June.
Yeah.
Interesting. The plot thickens.
Yeah. Let's go over to Tim.
Well, I guess you would say it's kind of a flawed masterpiece. It has its flaws, but you've gotten over the course of 30 years, everybody's gotten kind of used to them, and they still love the movie anyway. It's a movie that I guess was maybe a little ahead of its time because it wasn't taken seriously at all, and it's based on a very good book, and they did as good a job as they could with it at the time, I think. And well, it'll be interesting to see if this newer version next year is good or if it makes the same mistakes, you know, like maybe it's just too complicated for film. I don't know, but yeah, I'd give it a 9 as well. I think holds up pretty good, and it's still an enjoyable watch. So there you go.
Tim, over to Susan. Oh, I wonder what score this will be.
Well, I think I'll give it 15 still suits out of 10. No, it's a 10 out of 10. It's as Beef Dad used to say, a solid gold 10 out of 10.
Solid gold.
It is absolutely the spice must flow. You know, the reality of this story is that that there's hope for the future, that humanity won't destroy itself in the next 100,000 years, actually. So
let's hope we all become Old Spice.
Yeah, Old Spice. Great.
It was, you know. I'm just going out tonight, Pets. Just gonna put some Old Spice.
For me, yeah, it's an enjoyable movie. As Tim says, it is flawed, but it has got a big cult following now. So I am going to give it 9 boils and warts out of 10. So I just love the Baron. So on that note, we'll end it now. We'll I'd like to say thank you, Susan, Tim, David, for joining me talking about David Lynch's Dune. You guys out there, please leave a comment. Let us know what you thought of the movie yourself. Let us know what you think of the cast we do. Give us some inspiration, suggestions of what we could do in the future. And if you'd like to join us, please leave me a message, or any of the cast members. They're freely available on any social media platform. We're on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. As on YouTube as well, if you want to be notified of our videos going up, please press the bell symbol and you will get a ding every time we put a new video. It's usually maybe 2 or 3 a week. It depends how we feel. So until next time, remember, guys, the spice must flow.
Right. Yeah.